Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om. So, in the third shloka, second we have done, I think. Yam sanyasamiti prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava. What is called as sannyasa, by them know that sannyasa to be nothing else than the karma yoga. Karma yoga itself is a sannyasa. People think without karma yoga they can directly jump to sannyasa. So he is correcting their misunderstanding. Karma yoga is the one which really prepares you, makes you sannyasa. Sannyasa is not a brand. It has to grow within you. The growth takes place through karma yoga. So therefore, yam sanyasamiti prahuhu yogam tam, because nahi asanyasta sankalpaha. One who has not given up his desire, sankalpa, can't become yogi, a karma yogi or even sannyasi. Yogi bhavati kaschana. No one can become a yogi without giving up his sankalpa for fruits of action. In fact, it is an expectation, dependency on future. Because all expectation, karma phala sakti, attachment for the fruits of action makes a person weak, dependent. Because the result is unknown to anybody. While acting, we are not sure of what is going to happen. So it is a practical problem that we are not sure of the result of action while we are acting. So therefore, what is so uncertain, trying to make sure unnecessarily wastes our mind, it creates anxiety. That's one thing. That is a practical problem. Another thing is the very nature of dependency on the result makes a person, the personality weak, not tentatively weak, the whole personality weak. The person should depend on the present. Doing the work as a service to Ishvara is the best one, because that makes him more relaxed and free also. Because in general life, people want pleasures, money, status and all that. So expecting them, depending on them, being addicted to them itself is a weakness, is a dependency, is a full of sorrows. So therefore he says next third shloka, evam paramartha sannyasa karma yogayoh kartrudvarakam sannyasa samanyam apeksha. I am reading just an introduction, Bhashyakara's introduction to the shloka. Pandava iti karma yogasya stutyartam sannyasattvam uktam. Okay. Iti tam sannyasatvena stutva aduna karma yogasya dhyana yoga sadhanatvam. Okay, this is over already. He praised karma yoga, how karma yoga is equal to sannyasa. It is a little praise. In praise there is a little exaggeration, but partly true, partly exaggeration. Karma yoga itself is sannyasa. Don't worry, don't think of sannyasa. Karma yoga itself is. This was in praise. Now next he says how karma yoga is a means for meditation. In the third shloka, Aruruksho muneryogam karma karanamachyate. A person who wants to, this is a technical word, I don't know how to translate. Did he translate the shloka? You didn't get it? Third shloka. 6th chapter, 3rd shloka. So Aruruksho, this Aroha is a very peculiar term in Sanskrit. Aroha literally means ascending. Ascending the yoga. Yogarudaha, one who has ascended the yoga. But the ascending only means being capable of practicing meditation. Arurukshu, a person who wants to practice meditation. To be able to practice meditation, he has to develop the mind, capacity, ability to do meditation. So Arurukshu, literal translation doesn't work because this whole, it is an idiomatic expression, you can't translate at all. Arurukshoha muner yogam. A person who wants to acquire the ability to meditate. To be able to meditate, he needs a sadhana before that. Before he acquires the ability to meditate, he has to perform karma yoga, because karma yoga prepares him, gives him the ability to meditate. Therefore, Arurukshu, one who wants to ascend, means one who wants to practice meditation. For such a person, you want to acquire the ability to practice meditation. Karma yoga is the means. Once you got the ability and started doing meditation, then what is the sadhana for him? Detachment, sannyasa, renunciation is a sadhana for continuing the meditation to reach the fruit of meditation. This again is a difficult to translate. Aruruksho muner yogam karma karanamachyate yogarudhasya tasyaiva yogarudhasya. Yogarudha here means to reach the culmination of meditation, to reach the perfection of meditation. Yogarudha means Yogarudha. What does he say? Yogarudha. Let me see. Tavat niraya jitendriyasya chittam samadhiyate tada sa jhatiti yogarudo bhavati. ಚಿತ್ತವು ಸಮಾಧಾನದಾಗವನು, ಬೇರೆ ಯೋಗಾರೂಢನು ಆಗುವನು. ಸರ್ವಸಂಕಲ್ಪಸ ಯೋಗಾರೂಢನ ಲಕ್ಷಣ. What is yogarudha? Nobody says. These are all technical way. That's why this directly reading the books of not help at all. Because they take a word and keep on explaining, what exactly it is they don't say. Here Swamiji made it clear. Swamiji's footnotes, though brief, are very perfect. Exactly where we need. Even after reading 5 and 10 books, you won't get, he will get it here. Exactly where he needs the most necessary, there he clarifies the point. See, this is what I know. He made it clear. So, Yogarudha means a perfect yogi, attaining perfection in yoga or culmination in yoga. Yoga Arudha, Yoga Bhrashta, these are highly complicated words. Complicate means they give totally some negative meanings. Let me note down here. Is there any space? Here itself let me write. Yoga Rudha is a one who has, how to translate Yoga Rudha? Arudha means one who has completed, perfected, reached the result of meditation, culmination of meditation. How to, in one word, I don't know how to translate. In one word, reached the perfection. That's all. A perfected yogi, that would be better. So yoga rudhasya, one who wants to perfect the yoga, means you have started yoga, but you need perfection of the yoga. This third shloka I am talking, two people are there. One who wants to practice meditation, but he has not become capable of doing meditation. So to acquire the ability to do meditation, you are in a still lower level, you need karma yoga. Karma yoga prepares you, and once you become the end of karma yoga, that means the result of karma yoga, mind becomes fit for meditation. Okay, once you become fit for meditation, you start practicing. But that practice, while practicing the meditation, in order that the meditation should reach perfection, when you reach perfection, you call yoga rudha. See, yoga rudhasya, this is the thing. How to? There is no space. To complete the yoga and reach, yoga means meditation. Same word is used in many meanings according to the context. Yoga can mean karma yoga. Yoga can mean meditation. Yoga can mean jnana. Yoga can mean simple jaining. Yoga can mean a name of a chapter. You see the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. If each chapter is called yoga, then there will be 18 yogas. And in some chapters, there is only Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. He is dividing qualities into three: Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. He is explaining the nature of the three gunas. So just knowing the nature of three gunas becomes a yoga. Then here the yoga means a name, a topic. A topic. Topic of this chapter is yoga, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna Vishada is the topic of the first chapter. Here yoga means topic. So in Sanskrit, certain words are used in so many meanings. We have some Sanskrit dictionaries in the shloka form, like Amara Kosha, Medini Kosha. There are many Kosha. Kosha is a dictionary. Kosha means a treasure, treasury. A treasure is called Kosha, like a bank. So Amara Kosha, Amara Simha was the author. Amara Simha wrote a Sanskrit dictionary in the form of shlokas. There are several dictionaries, among them Amara Simha became popular. And it was read in those days, even now it is read. For children, for beginners to learn Sanskrit dictionary, you memorize the whole shloka and all the words are known to you. Dictionary gives the synonyms and every word he covers. All subject-wise he covers. So we have a very peculiar thing. I don't know whether people have, other languages have. Dictionary in the form of shloka. In the form of shlokas. So it is memorizing becomes easy, recalling becomes easy. One more thing is, in a shloka, there is a rhyme. There is a rhyme means there is a kind of a tune, like a music has a tune, it has got a rhythm. It has got a rhythm. So in that rhythm, you remember the first word, even if you forget in between any word, that rhythm recalls. Rhythm brings it. So that way, shloka is advantageous. So here, for the word yoga, he gives 10 meanings. I don't remember the shloka. 10 meanings he gives. The word yoga means topic. Yoga means karma yoga. Yoga means jnana yoga. Yoga means jaining. Yoga means dhyana yoga. Yoga means luck. Luck also. So yoga, duryoga, Kannadiga, this Karnataka people use it mostly. Yoga means luck. So you have got a yoga. They always say, oh, you need a yoga for that. Yoga means you need luck for that. I didn't understand because we don't use Telugu people. Kannadigas use here, these local people. Yoga means luck. So the yoga has so many meanings. All the 10 meanings he puts in one place in one shloka. So wherever you come across the word yoga, recall the shloka, it becomes easy. All synonyms. And at the end of the book, he gives, same word has got more than one meaning. See, for the one meaning, there are many words. Sometimes one word has many meanings. Nanartha. Nanartha is at the end of the book, he covers Nanartha, 3rd chapter. At the end of the second half of the 3rd chapter, Nanartha. Same word has got more than one meaning. He gives all those meanings. So it's a very comprehensive dictionary. It's very popular. The traditional Gurukulas, they study. Even here, our boys are taught. So that Amarakosha, modern people, different way, we keep on referring alphabetical order dictionaries. Whenever you come across, you refer. So some new word you learn, but again there will be other words you don't know. But dictionary, you know the entire language. So our traditional way is, first you learn Sanskrit grammar, then you learn Sanskrit dictionary, Amarakosha. Third is, for language practice, take some kavya, poems, like Kalidasa's Raghuvamsha and other poems. These three you study together, then your Sanskrit is complete. Grammar, Sanskrit dictionary, shloka form, shloka dictionary, then practice of language, you study some poems. Then Sanskrit is thorough, that is our traditional way. So in Amarakosha, he gives the various meanings. So here yoga means joining also. Sanyoga, Viyoga. Okay. So here yoga rudha, one who has ascended yoga, means he reached the end of yoga. He reached the culmination or the fruit of yoga. That is jnanam. End of yoga is Brahma jnanam only. So yoga rudha is, you attain the result of jnanam. When the meditation becomes complete, you don't need any more meditation. You are already established in your nature as Brahman. So therefore, for such a person, here yoga rudasya, if you take it literally, for a yoga rudha, the translation looks like that. For a person who has reached the culmination. For a person who has reached culmination, what sadhana does he need? So it can't be translated like that. You have to say, in order to reach that, you have to say, yoga rudha, yoga rudasya. The literally, probably he also must have done the same translation. For a person who has reached the culmination, no, not for that. In order to attain, you have to say that. Tumunnarthe yoga rudasya shashti tumunnarthe. So, yoga rudaha, to attain that culmination of yoga, perfection of yoga, what the sadhana is, of course, meditation you do, but along with meditation, what you need is, along with meditation, what we need is, shama, he uses the word. Shama means withdrawal from worldly life. So, generally, Shankaracharya advises karma sannyasa. See, karma sannyasa means renouncing all activity and becoming a monk, a sannyasi. You call monk only? In your language, I don't know. In English, they call sannyasa only. Sannyasi word is used. In English, they use. Probably is a non-English term, maybe French and German or...
Monk is a Greek word.
Greek word, oh, okay. Greek word. So Italy also uses same monk.
The meaning is alone.
Alone, correct. Alone means not associated with country, society, family. Lone, monk means alone. Mono person is called a monk. Okay, that's good. Oh yes, monk. Is it monk or monk?
Monaco.
Monaco, mono, correct. The mono is one. Alone. lonely, correct.
Grief is one person.
Ekaki, we call in ekaki. Ekaki means alone. Ekaki.
It's like Keval.
Kevala is ekaki. Kevala is same, ekaki.
And alone.
Ekaki, true. So, so he has to, Shankaracharya insists on giving up the very karma. So he has a logic. First, as a karma yogi, you do karma without attachment to the result of it. The very karma itself is a joy, is a service. You enjoy the very devotional service, selfless service. So not paying attention, not taking interest in the result, whatever, not taking interest in the result doesn't mean being careless. That is another misunderstanding. Generally, voluntary service, we see the two people here, any place. When you get a servant by paying, when you pay, you can ask him. If he has not done well, you can ask him, why have you not done? Otherwise, you can punish him. But for voluntary service, he comes and does whatever he likes. He may be careless. He may not do it perfectly well. He may take too long time, or the quality of work may not be good. Now you can't order him, you can't punish him, you can't do anything because it's a voluntary. Therefore, the voluntary without receiving any reward, any money, that work suffers from quality. But here in Bhagavad Gita is talking differently. When you do service lovingly, willingly, then the quality improves. This is our spiritual way. In those days, the voluntary people, the service, with a motive of service, those who do, in fact, the quality will be much better than the person who works for money, who works for out of the love for service, out of the love for a person I am serving. Two things: you love the very service, or you love the person for whose sake you are serving. This also is again subtle difference. If you love Bhagavan and as a devotional service you work for it, so not interested in the result only means that not particular about the result. That's what it means. Not particular about the result. You don't insist that this must come. You just leave it. Whatever comes, we accept it. So, since I am not particularly particular about what amount of result I should get, therefore, you just don't worry about the result. Whatever comes, it is okay for me. My doing itself with wholeheartedly, sincerely, lovingly is important. So he concentrates on working rather than the result he is going to get. So this is Karma Yoga. So some people ask, is not Karma Yoga itself sannyasa? Shankaracharya says no. Because in Karma Yoga, you have a detachment for result, but you have still a love for service, love for working and love for service. That also requires a little bit of attachment, a little bit of identification that I am serving. A little pride is required in service. You have to have a little pride, a positive pride, not a negative ego and all. It's a simple positive pride that I am doing it. See, unless you will feel proud of serving somebody, if you are an abhimani, abhimani means, how do you say? Fan. These people, you say, a fan of a leader. A leader has some followers, a fan, an admirer, a follower, fan we call in India. Fan means somebody, something like a fanatic, a person who is an admirer, who lover of a leader. Like you see, you have got plenty of, if Modi comes, people don't allow him to speak. Have you ever seen? If Modi comes, our Prime Minister, people don't allow him to speak. They keep on screaming, Modi, Modi, Modi. So they are so overwhelmed with his presence, they won't even listen to him what they say. So this is a fan club. Fans, they do like that. Any leader, what you call a politician or a cricketer or some film actor come, that's all. Their very presence, they are overwhelmed, they won't listen to him what he speaks. So, a person who is a fan, who is a lover of him, an admirer, a follower of him, he may not be interested in the result, but at least he has a little pride in him. He has a pride. He feels proud of him. Otherwise, he won't become his follower. He won't become his follower. We call fan, I don't know what you call in English language, but here in India you call them fans. Abhimani in Sanskrit or Indian languages is an Abhimani. So, a person who loves to serve your own Ishta Devata, Rama, Krishna, Shiva, you are a devotee. So, the devotee requires to feel little pride, and then he should enjoy only serving. Very serving gives him a joy and also gives him pride. Here he says, you are not attached to result of it, but there is a little pride in the very action. He says sannyasa means you drop even that. So
sarva karma sannyasa.
Sarva karma, yes. Not only karma phala, but karma also. Karma sannyasa, Shankara interprets this way. Karma phala sannyasa means giving up. While performing karma, you give up the fruit. Second is the very karma tyaga. Not only karma tyaga, he says sasadhanam karma parityajya. He uses the word always. Here also probably he uses sasadhanam. Sarva karmabhyaha vinivrittihi. Yeah, somewhere it is there. I have to search. Instead of searching, somewhere it will be there. You give up the karma phalam, you give up the karma, you give up certain limbs, certain auxiliary features. Like, how to say? A person who gives up his karma, that karma anga we call them. Karma anga is shikha. Shikha means you grow shikha. You grow the hair, particularly this hair. Shikha, you know it, I don't have to tell you. Yajñopavita. So the shikha and yajñopavita you are supposed to wear because they give you some samskara, some purification, some kind of a purification along with mantra. So that gives you certain ability for undertaking the rituals. So, when you are not interested in the result of yajna, when you are not interested in performing yajna, then why do you want to retain this yajñopavita and shikha? Even that you must give up. This is called sadhana. Sadhana means an ingredients or limbs of yajna. He gives up even the limbs of yajna. It is like if a person is a member of a party, political party. When he is a member of a political party, one is when I am serving the party, he expects that he should be given some power, some position. According to his capacity, he should get some position in the party. If he doesn't get it after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you can see the people started complaining. I don't know, do you have democracy elections in your place also? Then you know it. I think all over the world is there. All over the world. Democracy has become common, so therefore it is creating nuisance all over the world. So I'll give you an example. This explains this karma sannyasa. Shankaracharya's explanation, it explains beautifully. Very good illustration. Very good illustration. First he joins a party. He works for a few years, 4 or 5 years. Then he expects to be made a local leader of a district or a taluka, some area. He wants to be made a leader. If he doesn't make, he will wait for 1 more year. Then in next elections, he should be given ticket to be able to contest for that position. If suppose there are many contestants, so out of them they select one and don't select her. He gets angry. He says, I am more popular and I am an old a member of the party, I have done so much of service, I am not selected to be a leader. So what he will say is, he will give up the party and go to another party. Last minute, he will go exactly opposite party. I don't know, in other places, here it is there. Exactly, he will go to opposition party. The party which you have been criticizing, you immediately go to, and they are also foolishly accept them. In politics, we don't know who is enemy, who is friend. They criticize them ruthlessly, and tomorrow he will join the same party and criticize this party. It's very difficult to understand. So ultimately, we become fools. Who are who, we don't know. Therefore, don't get attachment to any party. Just to be neutral to all, because none of them can be trusted. Just to be neutral. We don't get attached to any party. Just to be neutral. So you expect power. You expect to be selected as a leader. So there are some people, very dedicated leaders we call them. They don't expect any power. Just they want to be the member of the party and serve. They can be called like karma yogis, because similar to comparison to karma yogi, that he doesn't expect power. So even if they don't give power, still I am a loyal party member. Loyal party member, he serves. So he can be called as a karma yogi who serves without expecting a power. Then after some times he is disappointed. At least he expects some kind of a internal leadership. Within the party he should be given some leadership. Two things is, one is a political power, another is within the party leadership, within that he should be given. That also he doesn't get. Then he expects at least a recognition, that on certain party forum important, he should be given recognition, honor, his words should be obeyed, and certain decisions if he takes, people will listen to him, they will consult him, some kind of respect or recognition, that he expects. Even that is not given. Then what will he do? He will be angry. He says, I retired from active politics. You retire from active politics means he doesn't come to the party functions, party office, he doesn't come, doesn't participate in the meetings, stays at home, but he retains the membership of the party. Still he has a membership of the party. And if somebody asks, who are you? I belong to so-and-so party. He will mention the party's name, and he carries the badge. He carries the badge, and you go to him home, you can see his own party leader's photo will be there in his drawing room. So this carrying the badges, he has not resigned from the party, but he stopped being active in the party. See, the one is expecting a power is karma phala asakti. Just for sake of example, illustration, we are not interested in the party. So karma yogi first expects the result. That means he expects to be given a power. When he doesn't expect the power, he is a phalatyaga. Karma phalatyaga is there, but karma is there. Yet he continues to be. When he doesn't expect a power, people ask, are you a member of the party? He says, of course, not only member, I am an active member. I am a very important member. Means he is actively working, but not expecting a power position. Okay. He is called karma yogi. But Shankaracharya says, even karma yoga is not enough. You have to give even karma also. Okay. Even in karma giving up, there are two things. One is, he stopped because he has been humiliated, insulted, nobody consults him, nobody takes his advice. So therefore he gets angry and he gives up the karma. He doesn't participate in any party functions and sits at home. He comes to know, yet he is interested in the party. So therefore, what is the decision? Who has taken? What happens? And he keeps informed about the party through others, through newspapers, through TV and others. Through others he talks, but he is not active. See the thing. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, you may give up the karma, but you will be indirectly from behind will be interested. Even that you should give up. That's what Shankaracharya's idea. 3 levels. One is karma phalatyaga. Second is karma, dropping the karma, abandoning the karma. Okay, you have given up the karma and karma phala. Is this sannyasa? No. This is not sannyasa. because you are still carrying the badge and membership of the party. You have to resign from the membership. You have to give up the badge. They call the badge, you know it? You call it badge? BADGE, badge. Some kind of a symbol. That's the thing, badge. I don't know what you call it, whatever call, but it is a call. Some badge like that. So, and they see, in India, every party has got a color cloth. They use a particular color. BJP uses saffron color, and some party uses pink color, some party uses yellow color. So each one has their own. That is called badge. So similarly, he says, this person stopped being actively working for the party, but he has not resigned from membership, stays at home, but he keeps informed about what is happening. If our party wins, he is not actively participating, but sitting at home, he feels happy that, our party is won. If they got defeated, our fellows are not working well, and he gets angry, he shouts at them. But people say, then why are you not active? I am not interested. If he says, I am not interested, but sitting at home, he will be watching.
Also, the auto-satisfaction is a karma phala.
Karma?
The auto-satisfaction is also a karma phala.
Yes.
So even if there is not an exterior
a little bit of asakti is attachment is there.
Yeah.
So he is not getting individual result, but his party result he is interested. He is interested in the party. Similarly here, he is not actively participating in the party, but still he carries the badge. That means he feels associated with the party. That association with the party is there. Still he is a member of the party. But here he says, you give up the karma phala, then you stop doing yajna, and still you carry the badge. That means still you feel related. Still you feel related to them. It is something like a sannyasi gives up karma totally, along with the membership, along with the badge. That's why this Yajnopavita is a badge for Yajna. You give up the badge. You totally give up, you resign from the totally Grihastha. So you don't associate with Grihastha. But if there is a Naishtika Brahmachari, a Grihastha, he is not actively doing Yajna. But if somebody does Yajna, he will go and participate. And he feels happy. See the difference. He doesn't do actually Yajna himself. And he says, I was doing, now hereafter I stopped my Yajna. I won't do. But if somebody does, he goes there. And he enjoys seeing the others doing it. So here there is an indirect participation. Therefore, if you carry Yajnopavita, you are not actually doing Yajna, but still you have a little interest, little taste for Yajna. You don't do directly, but if others do, you go and sit and watch something like a cricket. The cricketers, they play cricket and any other game. After he retires, if somebody is playing, he goes and sits and watches. He should have done like he will become a cricket commentator. He will explain to them, you should do like that, you should done like that, did this thing. So still the taste for the game has not gone. Subconscious, he says, even that should go away. The badge should go away. You should not associate it with that any game at all. Totally, I am uninterested in game. That total renunciation is sannyasa. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, first stage is karma phalatyaga, then karma tyaga, then the karma's ingredients, the instruments, the participation, indirect association, carrying the badge, old membership also wipe out. Not even membership. See, two things different. Like a person who is retired from some work. He was working in a school. After being retired from the school, still he feels association with the school. Our school, that school got good marks. They got a good percentage of result. Then he feels, you see, our school is good, I know. He feels proud of it. Though he is retired from the school, still he feels proud of it. Because still that old association, his Shankaracharya says, even that association should go away. what happens to them should be immaterial to him, not at all interested. An indirect interest also. Therefore, don't keep the membership with the school, resign from the school, nothing associated. You are equal to all schools. Therefore, once you cease to be a Grihastha, you have given up Grihastha and became sannyasi. So, once you give up Grihastha, first step is you give up the karma phala. You are not interested in rituals and you give up. But because of that old habit of doing karma, even if he doesn't do, somebody is doing yajna and they call him and he feels that, oh, you're doing yajna? Oh, I would like to see you. That means you invite me, and he says, oh, please come. Then if you are interested, please come, he says. Okay, since he is inviting, I'll go, he says. He'll go and sit there. He keeps on watching. And he says, hey, don't do like that. Do like this. Do like this. He keeps on advising. Hey, that will be wrong. You can't do like that. You should do like this. So, the old priest keeps advising others. He watches it. Hey, you made a mistake. You should not do it. We say, you were a priest before. You have done all those things yourself. Now, once you give up, keep quiet. If they ask, advise them. If they ask, tell them. Otherwise, just sit quiet and think of Bhagavan. Whatever they do it, let them do it. And he says, how can I keep quiet when they are making mistakes? That means still you have an attachment. If you give up your political party, you resign from the membership. Once you resign, you don't think of them. You say, our party is not doing well. They are talking wrongly. They are taking a wrong stand. He should have spoken like that. He should have done like that. Now, why are you interested? Once it is gone, gone, it is not yours. Now leave it. So, this kind of a subtle attachment, indirect interest, that also should go away. That indirect, giving up indirect interest, a remote interest, that's what Shankaracharya calls a sadhana. Why do you carry still membership? Sasadhanam karma parityajya. You can see people. Earlier, we are recording also. Can I tell? People will listen. Certain things we are not supposed to tell. Anyway, I'll do a little bit. Earlier, there used to be only Brahmanas used to be sannyasis. Nowadays, you can see them Kshatriyas are becoming. Even some of the Vaishya and some Shudras also started becoming. Nowadays, recently, you see them even foreigners, anybody. Even foreigners also become Hindu sannyasis. Anybody is becoming. So, you can see what background he comes from. After sannyasa, he carries still that old thinking. If he is a Kshatriya or a politician, you can see his interest, his commenting is talking about that aspect of the society. Even among the Brahmanas, some people really they give up and they are totally detached. They don't think of any rituals, karma or anything. They just talk of Vedanta, think of Vedanta, live Vedanta alone. But there are some people, still they retain that old ritual mind. As a priestly mind, he retains it. Whenever he has, his mind is all the time in the priest. So even after sannyasa, some people behave so much, you can see still he has not given up his pride, his attachment, his interest in that being priest. Now you can see he has so much of interest in these things, in rituals. So that's why Shankaracharya says sasadhanam. Sasadhanam. But in Shankaracharya's writings, you can never see his rituals and all that. When the point comes, he explains. Otherwise, he leaves it. You can see him when he is talking continuously, he is a Vedantin only. All the time Vedantin, Vedantin, Vedantin. You don't find him that old priestly person. You don't find in Shankaracharya's writing. Therefore, he says, sasadhanam karma parityajya. Not only the rituals, the necessary ingredients, the instruments, also you give up. You have nothing to do with the instruments. Yajnopavita Shikha also you give up because you don't have any thought of them again. Again, you don't even think of them. Otherwise, people still carry that old remote relationship with it. Therefore, he says, that is real sannyasa. When you give up even the instruments of yajna, You don't think of doing the yajna, or at least you vicariously enjoy when somebody does it. You go and sit and watch. Abba, you see, after a long time I have seen yajna, I felt very happy. But when you see as a sannyasi, you see everything is a yajna, whole life is yajna. The prayerful mood, the dedication, the love for Bhagavan is always there wherever you, whatever you do, all this is yajna. But he says no, that particular ritual alone he enjoys it. That means still he has got that attachment with it. So sasadhanam karma parityajya. He gives up all karmas along with badge, along with instruments, along with any remote association also is total. So such a person, Shama, he says, Yogarudasya tasyaiva Shamaha karanam uchyate. Shamaha means sannyasa. Shankaracharya is taking, now that activeness of mind is gone. When you are working, mind has got an active plan. Now he is so relaxed. That activeness of mind goes away. Activeness of mind means worldly activeness. Inward activeness continues, that self-observation. See, activeness is two-way. One is a meditative activeness and self-enquiry type of activeness. Then the activeness in the field of activity. So in the external field of activity, planning, thinking, idea, that is an activity. He doesn't have that activity. His activeness is only in self-observation. He is always alert and watchful. Alert and watchful. He is active in meditation, in vichara, but not in external work. Therefore, shamaha, for a person who needs to do meditation, the whole lifestyle is he gives up all karma and connection to karma, relationship with karma, everything goes away. If a person, still in a worldly man, he relates himself to them, he feels he belongs to their level. Therefore, for certain function, he expects that others should invite him. And invited, he feels happy. But a sannyasi doesn't expect them to invite me for rituals and functions or marriage and such other things. Even if they invite, he just politely refuses. You say, I am not meant for that, I can't come, and I don't come. So, the person who has given up karma still expects to be invited. That means still he feels belongingness with them. Belongingness with the grihastha. Because they should invite. Some people complain and they feel so bad that, see, he's holding a function, he's so good friend of me, he has come, I've invited him many times for our function at our home, but he has not invited me. He has not invited me. I told, anyway you are not interested, why do you want to go? Why do you want to waste your time? He says, no. Why did he not invite me? Why did he not invite me? You see how much he feels hurt. That means when you invite, he feels that he belongs to them, is related to them. Here, he should transcend even that belongingness. If they invite, it's not for you to feel happy. If they don't invite, don't feel disturbed because you are not of their level. Their karma is level different, your sannyasi is totally different. Therefore, that association, an attachment, an interest due to association should not be there. So anything associatory things, like Shikha, Yajna, Pavita, all that he gives up. So, this giving up the associativeness is sannyasa. That's why you told that monk means lonely person. It is lonely. So, sannyasa is just lonely, not big. So, sannyasa is not a group. Grihastha is a group. Sannyasa is not a group. Therefore, in North India, some people create sannyasi association. Sadhu Samaj Adhyaksha. We call them a president of Sadhu Samaj. Sannyasis, many sannyasis didn't participate. They told sadhus cannot form an association, cannot hold a meeting. Sannyasi is an individual. That's all. So, sadhus form a group and they fight for social rights and all that. I say, once you form, it becomes a party. So, don't do that. We never associate with anything. Your interest is only in truth. Therefore, he says, in dhyana, you give up the karma phala, karma, and even a remote connection with karma. That means you don't think of any karma at all. Just you are relaxed, your mind is continuously in a meditative state. So meditation doesn't require any association with any people. It is just relaxed. So therefore, shamaha is sannyasa. Upashamaha, Shankaracharya calls it. Upashama means not taking interest in active life, achievement, association. No action, no achievement, no association. All of them just to go away. Existing fact. You are interested in knowing the truth, that's all. Therefore, shamak karanam uchite. Yogarudasya tasyaiva shamak karanam. Here, two stages. Same person when he wants to acquire the ability, karma yoga. Same person who was a karma yogi before, now he wants to do meditation. For him, even karma yoga, he drops off. Even karma yoga, he just renounces and he just remains alone. Therefore, the modern society, particularly our Hindu organizations, RSS and etc., they are grumbling, they are complaining against sannyasis. You see how Christian missionaries are so actively working. What our sannyasis are doing? What are our sannyasis doing? They only sit in their ashram and waste their time. They don't do anything. They also should go to village, town to town. They should try to get back all our Hindus, those who are converted. You should get back to Hinduism. You should fight for them. And you just don't do anything. These fellows, they think that sannyasa is like another groupism like our missionaries. Missionaries is a more social political organizations. So they want to increase their number, forcibly bring them, attract them, tempt them. But Vedantin is not that. Not meant for attraction, temptation and increase your number. So he doesn't look at a social angle at all. He just sees the truth as the truth. He is interested in knowing the truth. Therefore, they complain, they are angry. They often tell also in their pravachanas, you see, you have got so many sannyasis. None of them are working for Hinduism. They are all wasting time. They have become parasites on society. They criticize us. Say we have become parasites because we are not used. Then what is the use? What is the service we are supposed to do? Go from village to village, attract people, bring them back to Hinduism, increase our number, tell them, be Hindus, don't go away from Hinduism. Tell the people clearly, don't leave Hinduism and go elsewhere. Even if you go, bring back. Tempt them, offer them money and do something and bring back so that our number is increased. Okay. Of course, doing some service, bringing them back to Hinduism is good. But attributing this as a duty of a sannyasi is meaningless. Sannyasi doesn't have a duty. Giving up the interest in duty and the result of the duty. All that he gives up and interested only in the truth and nothing but truth. So that is real sannyasa. And these people don't understand. Because their mind has become only westernized. Most of the Hindus have become westernized. They only criticize our own system because they don't understand. That's the biggest problem with them. So, yogarudasya tasyaiva. Same person before was a karma yogi. When he was a karma yogi, he need to work. Of course, without expecting result, but need to work, he has to work. But once you acquired the capacity to meditate and started meditation, now you have to lose interest in work. No working, no interested in work, just to give up and remain relaxed sannyasi. No goal, no ambition, no idea. Neither today, nor tomorrow, nor even day after, nor even eternally you have no duty. No duty at all. That is called shamaha. He says along with meditation, sannyasa, not doing any work, not taking any responsibility is a necessary thing. So, okay, that way he gives up his responsibility, his work, only does meditation. So, after how long of meditation? After how many years of doing meditation, he will attain yoga. Yogarudha. Yogarudha means attaining the fruit of yoga. Yogarudha means attaining the perfection of yoga. Fruit of yoga or perfection of yoga. Yeah. When will he attain? That is stated in the next fourth shloka. Kada yogarudo bhavati. When will he attain the perfection of yoga? Yada hinendriyartheshu na karmasvanu sajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yogarudastadochyate. Yada hinendriyartheshu na karmasu anusajjate. He is not interested in indriyartha. Yadahi nendriyartheshu. Indriya and artha. Artha means objects of senses. He is not interested in watching things. He is not interested in enjoying worldly things. So as if worldly things doesn't exist for him and is not needed. He doesn't want the worldly objects at all because he is happy all along by himself. When he is happy as he is, other things, if it is there, he will watch them. If it doesn't there, he doesn't even look at them. If it happens to come in front of you, he will just look at it. If it doesn't come, okay. That means he is not interested in the objects of senses, either for watching or for enjoying, neither of them. Okay. Yadahi nendriyartesh na karmasu. That means by the first line, he is advising to give up the bhoktrutvam, the enjoyerhood. Na karmasu anusajjate. Not get attached with karma, not interested in karma and rituals, none of them. All of them he gives up and only spends time in tattva vichara and meditation. Sarva sankalpa sannyasi. So he gives up all sankalpas, all thoughts about any achievements, enjoyments. Achievements, enjoyments, thoughts about all these things, they are called sankalpa. Sarva sankalpa sannyasi. He renounces all kinds of sankalpa means a thought, an ambitious thought, a desiring thought. So he doesn't entertain thoughts. That is a jnana nishtha. Yogarudha is jnana nishtha, tattva jnani. Tattva jnani doesn't have even good and positive thoughts also, because he has neither bad thoughts nor good thoughts. Neither a thought of harming others nor a thought of hurting others. Harming or helping. He has no thought of helping others because he never had a thought of harming others. Neither harming nor helping. He has no thought. People think that I must do these things, I must do this. Thoughts keep arising again and again and again. I must do this thing. Oh, I should have done like that. Either regarding the past, you have a feeling that I must have done like that, I must have done like this. Or if I get chance now, I shall do like this, I shall do like this. Oh, this is very nice. So, mind is imagining the various thoughts of various action. He says, na karmasu sarva sankalpa sannyasi. He gives up all kinds of sankalpa. That means no thought, whatever, either of past or our present or our future arises in him. So when there is no thought, what happens then? Will he remain like in coma? No, not in that sense. Thought arises, but it doesn't come as his own thought. So a thought which pushes him to action, such a thought doesn't arise. Thought just comes like in a mirror. In front of the mirror, when things come, simply they are reflected. But the mirror doesn't feel any pressure. Mirror doesn't feel any pressure. If the things come in front of him, in front of it reflects them. When they go away, mirror is clean. Here, sankalpa sannyasi means the thoughts doesn't arise, doesn't mean nirvikalpa samadhi, or he is in a coma and something like that. Thoughts arise, but those thoughts are due to prarabdha, or the thoughts do not spring from his sense of individuality. His sense of individuality is melted away. Just like his mind is like a mirror, thoughts get reflected, that's all. So he doesn't associate with him. There is no individuality who associate with the thoughts. Thoughts are thoughts. Just they arise. They belong to everybody. Just they arise. So you see here, sankalpa is an individual desire, an individual idea. Individual thought is sankalpa. Individual thought means he has a plan, an idea, an intent. It should be done like that. Then you can see that he is interested in it. That's why he is making an advice. He has got a plan. He has got certain idea about the thing. So enlightened man doesn't have a particular idea about anything. When people ask, okay, it can be done, he advises. But on his own, it doesn't have any ideas or plans and thoughts. These ideas, plans and thoughts motivate him, push him into desire. So these basic ideas alone arise in him, the change in the form of desires, and the desires push him to act. So you act because there is a push in your mind, there is a pressure. What is it? That's a desire. Desires pressurize you to undertake action. But even desire is a product of something else. What is that? When desire thinks desirability about the worldly objects and plans, worldly objects and things and many things, whatever it is there, if you look upon them as something desirable, something valuable, then you have some attachment for them. So when you think of the things as desirable and valuable, then a desire arises that I must have it. Then when you have it, I must do work. Then I must get a result of it. So all these things spring from that initial desirability, a thought of desirability. A thought of desirability creates a thought. And thought pushes you into action. Thought doesn't allow you to keep quiet. It pushes you, makes you active into action. What forces you? What pressurizes to act because there is a desire? Then from what the desire arises? When you look at the things, when you feel it is very nice thing, it is an interesting, it is useful. If you have a thought of it is interesting, it is useful, it is good, these three thoughts are sankalpas. When you think that it is good, it is interesting, it is useful. So this thought of being useful, thought of being good, thought of necessary, this thought changes or produces a desire in a person. So, Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi means he doesn't have a thought of desirability about anything. It just says neutrally. If a thing is good for a particular purpose, it doesn't see anything in general as useful or as great. See, everything is useful for a given purpose. So, from the standpoint of that purpose, this is good. Otherwise, if you forget that purpose, the utility of it, and then look at the thing, tell me what it is it good or bad? You can't say anything. So therefore he lives in that state where Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi, regarding every act of his life, it is Ishvara's Leela, they are happening it. I am not doing, I am not consciously wielding, it just happens. So he says Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi Yoga Rudas Tadochyate. When he culminates in giving up all desires, even the positive good desires also, desire for the serving society or doing something, even that he doesn't have, because even that requires a little element of ego, element of pride. Since he doesn't have any pride, mind just relaxed. If somebody requests, okay, he may do it. But on his own, he doesn't have any initiation to do that. Therefore, Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi Yoga Rudaha, he has reached the culmination of yoga. Okay, after this, then the next point is changes. Yada evam yoga rudaha tadatena atma uddhrito bhavati samsarat anartajata. So, now he is encouraging the practice of meditation. practice of meditation he is encouraging. Next is 5th shloka. Yeah. Uddhared atmanatmanam atmanam avasadayet atmaiva atmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmana. This is a famous shloka. Many places it is quoted. Even the worldly events also they quote them. Uddhared atmanatmanam means you should uplift yourself. Don't push yourself down. Uddhared atmanatmanam atmanam avasadanam means degrading yourself. Don't degrade yourself, rather raise yourself. Uddhared atmanatmanam, raise yourself, uplift yourself, and never degrade yourself, never run down yourself. So, uddhared atmanatmanam atmanam avasadayet. Why? Because why are you advising me to do? People think that others are enemies, others are hurting you, others are come in the way. And he says, nobody comes in the way, nobody hurts you. It is purely our own interest and desire that is creating problem. Therefore, uddhared atmanam natmanam avasadayet, because you alone can hurt you, you alone can harm you, you alone can uplift you. No other person can do anything. By practicing sadhana, developing spiritual qualities and Vedanta, you can uplift yourself. If you don't do all these things, you are only degrading yourself. Therefore, no other person, no outside person can force you, can do anything. It is you alone have to do. Uddhared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet. Never degrade yourself, because you are your own friend and you are your own enemy. It's a very beautiful shloka. For each person, he is a friend of himself, he is an enemy of himself. Others are part of life. They can't hurt us, they can't harm us, they can't do anything to us. So, Atmaiva Atmano Bandhu. You are your own friend. Atmaiva Ripuratmana. You are your own enemy. How? If you act like a friend, follow Dharma and Karma Yoga, and attain the Karma Yoga capacity to be able to do, Dhyana, not Karma Yoga. To get the capacity for Dhyana Yoga, you need to work on your own. You can't expect others to do and you remain alone, lazy. He doesn't want to. People ask, is there any Siddha Purusha? There might be. Why are you asking? He says, I have some ill health, I have some problem, so I pray to him, things will be solved. So, that way people expect others to solve them. They themselves don't take a responsibility of uplifting themselves. Therefore, he says, Uddhared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet. Atmaiva atmano bandhu. Atmaiva bandhuratmatmanastasya. Next is 6th shloka. I'll just say and close down. To such a person, Atma is a bandhu. Atma is a friend. Atma is a friend to such a person. Yena atvaiva atmana jitaha. Who has conquered himself. See, for a person, himself is a friend to him. To a person, he becomes a friend to himself only if he has a self-control over yourself. His control over your senses and mind. If you don't have that, anatmanastu shatrutve, you will be unconsciously or consciously working as an enemy to yourself. Only when vartet atmaiva shatruvat. If you are working against yourself, you become an enemy. If you are working for yourself, you become a friend. Therefore, a friend is a one who always helps. Therefore, a person who uplifts himself, he is a friend. A person who harms himself, doesn't follow spiritual sadhana, doesn't grow out of human weaknesses, then you are becoming your own enemy. Or one of the Gurujis, Vrindavan Akhandananda Swamiji used to say, he says, in our younger days we would meet sadhus. In our younger days at home, any sadhus comes, we would go and sit with them and talk to them and spend time, do some little service, so that we will get their blessing and when they are teaching also. Say, he says, one of his guru would say, tell him, he went to the guru And he advised him to have a self-control and do sadhana and japa, control your mind, control your sense organs and all. It seems our Swamiji told in those younger boys, it's very difficult, how can we do that? And that Guruji told, you see, if not today, tomorrow or day after, even after 100 years, 10 years, 100 years, you alone have to do. You can't postpone and wait for it, or you can't expect others to do on your behalf. Your self-control, you alone have to do. Your Atma Jnana, you alone can do. No other person can give you. It is like if you are hungry, you have to eat your food. Others cannot eat for you. You have to eat for yourself. Similarly, Uddhared Atmanatmanam, you have to uplift yourself. That means your upliftment, your advancement, your spiritual advancements depends upon your effort. It is in your hands. How you make use of your effort, it depends upon how you make use of your effort. So if you make proper efforts, you will reach it. If you don't do it, you will remain in the same problem. Therefore, much depends upon your own effort. So, act as a friend to yourself. Don't act as an enemy to yourself, because there is every possibility, as we people Hindus are doing, we are only our own enemies. Our Hindus only support all anti-Hindus. So, because of the long foreign rule, we just don't know who is friend, who is enemy. We got confused, and we talk as if we are anti-Hindus. All secularism. In India, secularism is talking against Hinduism. Hindus alone talk against Hinduism. People are surprised, what is this they are talking? That is the biggest problem of Hindus. They have become their own enemies. So, Atmaiva Atmano Bandhur Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. You are your own friend, you are your own enemy. This is a beautiful expression. So our Guruji would say, in his younger days, his Guru means sadhus. Any sadhu, they call him Guruji. So sadhus, when they meet them, they do namaskara and then ask for advice something. And they would tell that you alone are your friend. Don't wait for others. Don't wait that something will suddenly happen and you will change. Nothing will happen. You have to consciously make an effort and grow. You have to grow spiritually. You have to consciously make an effort. And if you don't do, who will do for yourself? If you refuse to do now, you are only postponing. Either tomorrow or day after or 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You alone have to do. Anyway you have to do. Why not I do right now? Why do you want to postpone? Why do you want to complain? Oh, controlling sense organs and mind is very difficult. Oh, not possible, not possible. Why? Are you doing any favor to others by your self-control? You're not doing any favor to others. And others can't do anything to you. You alone have to do yourself. If you cultivate good habits, you are a friend. If you cultivate bad habits, bad qualities, then you are an enemy to yourself. Nobody can help you. So that's what he says. Uddhared Atmanatmanam Natmadam Avasadayet Atmaiva Atmano Bandhuratmaiva Ripuratmanaha. You are your own friend and you are your own enemy. That means don't act like an enemy, but act like a friend. So, what makes one a friend of oneself and what makes one an enemy of myself? How am I supposed to act, think and behave so that I become friend to myself? This will be stated in the next sloka. If you act in this way, you are a friend to yourself, spiritually. Or if you act in this way, you are your own enemy. So there is no Satan outside, it is you. In your mind, in your thinking, in your outlook. If you have a positive good, and then you will be okay. Otherwise, you will be the loser. Okay, we'll see more next. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.